Hello and welcome back to Highway to Hoover, a production of SEC Extra over at D1Baseball.com. I'm your host, Joe Healy, joined today by the Director of College Scouting for D1 Baseball and PrepBaseball.com, David Seifert. Had him on a few weeks ago, to talk about Team USA prospects. Really enjoyed chatting with him about that. So we've brought him back. He's part of our Cape coverage team, and we're going to talk SEC prospects for Bourne, Wareham, Cotuit, and Falmouth today. He's doing the heavy lifting with 4 teams. Aaron and I only have 3 each, so Seif does the heavy lifting for us. We appreciate that. So we will jump into that in just a minute, but first I have to remind you that this episode of Highway to Hoover and every episode of Highway to Hoover is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. The sun's out and the fun is on at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Score a cool pool, savor summer flavor with a grill, prep for fishing weekends, or mount up with a new mountain bike. However you have fun, you can't lose with our top brands. Gear up online at academy.com or at your local store. All right, Cy, first off, I appreciate you jumping back in and joining us again.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I'm feeling like a regular, so yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way you should feel. We want you to feel like a regular here. We enjoy having you. Another good summer on the Cape. I don't know about you, Seif, but every time I go up there, yes, does the Cape have issues to address with, the pitching is a tough situation there because of innings limits. And, we can go on and on about things we would do better with the Cape or that could be done better or what have you. But honestly, I go up there and it's, every time I come back feeling really good about having been there, it's just a cool scene. So I hope you felt the same up there. It just always feels like, first of all, the weather's usually great, temperature wise, and you get to see a lot of good players. And, I feel like that's a good way to spend a week or so.
Yeah, no doubt. I saw the All-Star game too. So that was actually, I've been up there, 15 years now, outside of, the summer of 2020. But I thought that was the best All-Star game. It was competitive. There's plenty of offense, but just what Whitey did with their field and just the extra stuff for the kids, the fun stuff, the autographs, everything was so well ran and coordinated. I was super impressed. And I've never been to a bad All-Star game by any means, but just Whitey had plenty of space and they executed it. It was a great day and the weather was great, like you mentioned too. So I had it was only a week long this year, but I had a fabulous trip to the Cape.
Yeah, it's almost like it recharges my batteries a little bit to go up there and just kind of, it's nice and laid back and you can do your job and, it's minimal.
Well, you can kind of do your job. Like you said, the Cape does have some things to address and it gets harder and harder to find good players, right? Every summer, because sometimes it wasn't exactly like Cape quality that we grew accustomed to over the years. But as we both talked about, and we can talk about it here, is concentrate on getting better players and making a better fan experience and things. Don't worry about D1 baseball sitting behind the plate. That's right. Everyone has a job to do. It's okay. It's okay. We can sit behind the plate and have a radar gun in hand. We don't have to be a major league scout to qualify for that role. But whatever, we make it work, and it's a good time. And again, we can worry about other things, and I think they can too.
Yep. Nevertheless, we press on, Seif, doing our jobs at the Cape.
Moving forward, here we go.
Yeah. Let's start with guys on Bourne, Seif. That feels fitting, just given that Bourne won the championship a couple days ago here. I think the final score of the final was 19-2 or something. They really put it on YD. Yeah. So a little bit anticlimactic there, but congrats to Bourne. Consistently one of the better franchises on the Cape, consistent winner, always kind of feels like they're in the mix. But they had a really interesting group of players there. I saw them once, but they were one of your primary looks. So let's start with Kuhio Aloy. He's probably as interesting as anybody on that team for me, because I'm kind of fascinated, just on a side note, before I ask you for your evaluation. I'm kind of interested to see what he's like a little bit now that Vahiva is gone, because I think you could argue both sides of it. That was he comfortable with having his brother there? That's cool. I would have loved to have played with my brother at a high level like that. That's cool. But also Dave Van Horn has brought up the point of there was actually a lot of pressure on him as the little brother to kind of almost justify that he's good enough for that level, because he came off at BYU and his numbers were just okay. And so maybe some of that pressure lifts this year, just kind of being his own person. So we'll see. But I'm curious, Seif, what you thought about him. I think we know that. There's just crazy raw juice. But What else did you see from the younger Aloy brother this summer? What did you like?
Yeah, first look, I had a few games before the All-Star game. Saw him then. I mean, first thing you stand out, you notice the strength in the body, and then you look at the swing. I mean, the ball absolutely just jumps off his bat. Has power at all fields. He's more of a middle of the field to pull side guy, but just the bat speed and the ball jumping off the bat obviously is what he brings to the park. That's his role. He's a masher. As far as position, I think that's still a work in progress, right? He's not a shortstop, obviously, so he doesn't have the shoes to fill of his brother there. But, right field, first base, he's going to settle into one of those. But probably at the end of the day, he's a first baseman. It's a bat-first profile. But, without a doubt, he's a top 3-run prospect. And from there, the defense improves. His bat-to-ball is definitely there. I mean, I think the big thing with him last fall when I visited Arkansas when they hosted Oklahoma State, just talking and watching was just the swing and miss. But he really didn't do that a ton in the spring and this summer. He only struck out, I think, maybe 15, 16 times and almost 60 at-bats. So, very, very good at making adjustments and knowing what he hits and laying off the slider away, which kind of seemed like his kryptonite.
Yeah, the defensive piece will be interesting. I think from sat in on a media availability with Dave Van Horn a couple weeks ago, and somebody asked him about Aloy defensively, and they feel confident that he's gonna play the outfield, and they're gonna give that a go. And I think scouts will appreciate getting that look at him, just to kind of see how he does once the live ABs start happening. But that'll certainly be interesting. Let's talk about another guy who's a similar physical presence in Braden Holcomb. Second straight summer here with Bourne. But I'm going to need you to kind of maybe walk me through it a little bit, Seif, because he seems like such a different player on the Cape than what we see at Vanderbilt. So this is 2 straight summers where he goes to the Cape and has pretty decent summers by some of the numbers, but he's like stealing bases on the Cape. He's not hitting for that much power. And I get that, okay, wood bats, yada, yada, but still, like, you'd expect a little more power from him. But then when he's at Vanderbilt, it's very much like, he doesn't run. It's, he hits for power there. So I'm just not quite sure what to make of how he's just feels like a different player on the Cape. And I'm curious what you think.
Yeah. You know what? I think you're reading my mind on this, because when, we said, hey, let's talk, let's pod about this. A great idea. Let's do it. When Holcomb came up, I was like, yeah, be prepared to talk about Holcomb. He's Jonathan Vastine to me, or Vastine. Sure, I probably butchered his last name, but it's the same type of guy. Vastine always went to the Cape, either 2 or 3 summers in a row, put up numbers, limited the strikeouts, more so than the 29% he was posting at Vandy, but like it was under 20. Did that 2 years in a row. I'm like, okay, Vastine, top 3-round shortstop, right? Like, he runs, he throws, he defends, he can hit. And then he gets back to Vanderbilt, and it's just a different offensive player. I think for whatever reason, Holcomb's the same guy, right? There was no power. He didn't hit a home run in over 150 at bats combined between the regular season and the postseason. And of note, he was one you mentioned. Bourne, they won the championship. He hit 464 in the postseason. I mean, so he's doing a lot right, and he only struck out 6 times. So he's limited his strikeouts, both in the regular season and the postseason. So to me, he's just he's battling better. He's on plane earlier. Whatever adjustment he's making to limit the strikeouts. He did a great job this summer, and it is a mystery. It is a mystery why, but he'll be a fun one to watch back at Vandy this fall, right? Can he continue the adjustments he made in the Cape from the summer? Obviously, Vastine didn't, but man, let's hope Holcomb can, because he's a monster. He looks like a NFL tight end in the batter's box, 6'5", 240. I mean, he definitely looked the part of just slugger. So we kind of a Geo Stanton type of guy.
Yeah, somebody
look wise.
Yes, yeah. Certainly he's a little bit healthier than Giancarlo Stanton is these days. Somebody before his, like, as a freshman, right before his freshman season, somebody told me he's like Austin Riley physically, like as a freshman. Like, that kind of gives you an idea of like what we're talking about physically.
And then defensively too. I mean, he didn't make every routine play, but he made some really good plays, ranging all the directions. He came in on a couple of balls really well, especially for a guy's size. Yeah. He's an improving defender too, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out for him here, this fall and then moving forward for the 26th draft.
Now, a very different size person who plays for Vanderbilt, and Riker Waite.
Love him.
Maybe as much as anybody that I saw, somebody who just very little track record that everyone kind of came away from the summer going like, who is this guy? Because everybody I talked to just raves about him. So tell me what you like so much, Seif, because Aaron and I agree with you. Like we really like him as a player. So tell me what you saw from him.
Oh, I understand why Fitty likes him. He's a definitely first team all fit at the end of the year. I mean, record he's 5'10", 175, 180. Looks a little thicker in the uni, kind of kind of like a David Eckstein type, almost actually like Arizona State. Dustin Pedroia, excuse me, kind of on that body type. You know, the not thick, but the strong body type. But man, Wade sets himself apart. The ball just jumps on his bat for 5'10", 180. He's got some crazy strength in those hands and forearms, and he can put a bolt into the ball. He's not an over the fence power hitter by any means, but his line drives are hard. Switch hitter. I like him a lot from the left side because that's mostly where he hit. But he's an exciting guy. And then you put him at shortstop, range in every direction. He'll make the routine play. He'll also make the diving play up the middle, jump to his feet, throw across. There's plenty of arm strength there. So yeah, he's gonna be a fun one for Vandy. He was a fun one this summer. I think he ended right under 300. Had two handfuls of extra base hits, and again, just the defense was really, really good from start to finish.
Yeah, it's a fun player to follow because I'm interested to see how it translates in the spring.
And there's the Vastine takeover again. Wade is just the guy who's going to jump into what Vastine was a 3.5-year starter there, and I think Wade could go in there as a sophomore and being a 2-year starter there at Vandy. And it's the 27 draft is a ways away. Don't get me wrong, but I mean this is a guy who could be a top 3 rounder. Then, because kind of underside is kind of in vogue right now, right? You have all these shorter hitters having success because their strike zone's smaller and everything else, and Wade could be one of those next kind of undersized guys that goes in the top 2-3 rounds that maybe traditionally hadn't belonged there because of how they looked and not really how they played.
Yeah, fair enough. Really quick, I know you didn't get a live look at him, but Matthew Shorey from Vanderbilt threw in the postseason for Bourne, and you got to look at him. Just quickly, because I know you don't have a ton, but just quickly on Matthew Shorey and what you see in a limited look.
Yeah, I just watched one of I think he pitched game 1 of the championship series. Bourne won that game as well, but I think he piggybacked with Wysong from Wake Forest, I believe.
Yep.
Anyway, Shorey's more a deception guy, but it's nasty. It's coming out of his shirt, well across his body from the left side. He'll pitch 90, 91, maybe touch a 92 in there or whatever. So, it's getting on the hitters, especially the lefties, with that look and that angle and everything else. But he'll mix in that breaking ball, too, from that 3/4 lower, 3/4 slot. But not so much. Doesn't profile as a starter at all, but certainly a nasty reliever. And then one at the end of the day, he'll have to perform all 4 years in college. But probably not a high draft pick, but certainly got some nasty stuff that's going to be a factor in that Vanderbilt bullpen for sure.
Let's quickly, so just for the listeners' edification, we typically Wareham as a team that we kind of split up between, all of the staffers to kind of fill in gaps, for a number of reasons. But so quickly, a few players, more from what I've seen, and Seif, once I go through them, if you have anything on anybody, feel free to jump in. But if not, no worries. But on previous episode, Aaron Fitt really had a lot of good things to say about Braden Randall, who's a rising junior going to Ole Miss. He's been a reserve infielder the last couple of years, undersized guy too, really about the same size as Riker Wade. It's probably 5'9", 5'10", 175. But feels like he's a guy who's now ready for that opportunity. And I think it's a good player development story. We talked about this, that, he was a fairly high profile freshman arriving at Ole Miss, and it just didn't click right away. And I think in this world of college athletics, we're so eager for these big name guys, whether they're freshmen or transfers or whatever, to just immediately be awesome. And if they're not, we lose patience. And so I think this is a good story of a guy who stuck around his program, has just gotten a little better, and now maybe with what he showed in the Cape is ready to take on a little bit more. One of his teammates there was Levi Clark at Tennessee. Seif, I think you've maybe seen him a little bit just because I know you. Yeah. So, I did not see him in the summer in the Cape, but he's a guy just in general that I'm excited to see him get another season of full-time reps because it wasn't quite full-time last year. I'm excited to see him there. And one more is Caden McDonald, 2A guy at Florida. I watched him on video and had TrackMan kind of up beside it. And he seems like a guy who could contribute both ways for Florida, but I really liked him on the mound. It was a loose arm, and the fastball really got on hitters. And so, look, I mean, Florida is always going to have a ton of options on the mound. They don't, you really have to earn it there. But he kind of seemed like a guy that could be ready to play a big role for them, whether offensively or on the mound. So those are, three guys that kind of on the Wareham roster stuck out to me that I think are particularly interesting.
Yeah, and you mentioned Levi Clark. I mean, at this point, Levi Clark is the number one catcher in the college class of 27. I mean, there's really nothing he doesn't do. He hits for average. He hits for power. He can throw. He can receive. I mean, there's not too many better players in college baseball, let alone for that 27 class than Levi Clark. I mean, just a special talent. I think just throw some stats out there. I mean, he hit 333 with power. He had 4 home runs, hit 333 in just 20 games, the first 20 games of the summer, and 75 at-bats. I mean, that's just the type of guy we're talking about. And then the other guy I liked on that team a little bit too, it was Hayden Yost. He played the entire season with Wareham, and he just easy mover, center fielder, got some sneaky power. He had 3 home runs. I think he hit in the 250s. But he was just an impressive guy. Again, it was just a one-game look out there, but we obviously all saw him this past spring as well. But he's an interesting guy for the upcoming draft, and top 5 round talent without a doubt at this point.
Yeah, that's it. Florida. Just quickly there, like Florida's going to be an interesting outfield to watch because they have Hayden Yost, and I'm with you. Like I really like him, just the tool standpoint. But then Kyle Jones, the transfer from Stetson they brought in that got hurt last year, is back in the mix. They brought in Jaden Bastian, who's kind of like Kyle Jones 2.0 from Jacksonville University, guy who can really run. And of course, they're going to have other guys because they're Florida. So like it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But if Yost is in that mix, like it truly could be 3 center fielders in the Florida outfield. So like good luck getting something to fall in Gainesville next spring. So let's move on to Cotuit, Seif. When I was asking you about guys you wanted to talk about, the first name out of your mouth very quickly was Ryne Farber, who is going to Auburn after playing at Texas State before that. Why was he the first name kind of on your mind when I was asking you about guys on these teams?
I liked how he played. I mean, he obviously performs. He had around 280, had a little power. He'll steal some bases. He doesn't really have that plus standout tool, where he's going to just wow you. But he's just a solid everyday guy. Has to bat to ball, like I said, a little pop, a little speed, enough arm to play shortstop. That's going to be I think that's going to go down as one of those really solid acquisitions, kind of like the Eric Snow. Like Snow plays, and the more you watch and the more you like him, I think Farber's going to be that same type of guy. I hadn't thought about that, but as soon as you said Eric Snow, I was like, yes, that's exactly because you get a one look at him and you're like, eh. But then you watch him when you watch him in a live game, it's like, okay, no, this guy he can play, Farber, I know he saw time at short, second, third. He could play first, he could play corner outfield, but he has the hands and he has the actions, everything else to stay on the dirt. I'm not saying, but he's just that type of guy that just a baseball player with athleticism that can pretty much do whatever you need him to do. Again, kind of like Snow was for the Tigers last year. Yeah.
And Snow ended up being, I think, a higher draft than a lot of people would have anticipated. So it obviously that profile pays off. Mm-hmm. One of the funnier stories from the Cape is I think all 3 of us that went there, me, Aaron, and yourself, had the same moment of seeing the name Cam Johnson on the Cotuit lineup. And
I knew where you were going there when your first sentence. I knew you were going there. So yes.
And we were like, "What? Like Cam Johnson, the Oklahoma lefty?
He's hitting. He's playing third base,
right?
as a lefty."
Yeah, exactly. Like I couldn't wait to see it. Then I realized we were talking about a different guy. Wichita State to Oklahoma transfer Camden Johnson goes by Cam. Played for Cotuit. So Seif. Sadly, we're not going to be talking about Cam Johnson, left-handed third baseman. But tell us about Cam Johnson, the actual third baseman going to Oklahoma.
Yeah, one of the weekends this past spring, I was at home in Control Central. As you know, I try to go out 2 out of 3 or 3 out of every 4 weekends live in person to the stadium. The other ones I stay home and watch as many games as I can. And I turned on Wichita State and watching Camden Johnson for Wichita State. I'm like, man, I like this guy. Oh, he's only a sophomore. Okay, I'll follow him for next year for the 26th draft. And then all of a sudden in the Cape, watching the Cape, and I'm like, Camden Johnson. Okay, and to the story you're talking about the lefty, but now he'll be at Oklahoma next year. But he's not a power hitter, but he's a plus defender with some arm strength, has speed, really good bat to ball, 6 foot, 175, 180. But and he's a left-handed hitter. Just really like the way he plays the game. I mean, he'll work the at bat to get on base. His on base percentage in the Cape this summer is well over 360. Again, not a lot of power, but it's more doubles, line drive doubles, to the gap, to the short gap or down a line. But just a really good player. I think he'll go in there for the Sooners and just hit the ground running. Very talented player.
Let's move on to Falmouth. And I should say for listeners, Seif's breakdowns of the Falmouth position players and pitchers are live on the site. So as we talk about this, if you want to go read what he wrote, you can do so on the site. We have to start for Falmouth. We have to start with Maika Niu. I wrote about him. When I arrived on the Cape, he was the buzziest player on the Cape. I mean, I got there right after July 4th and he already had 6 home runs or something. Ends up winning MVP. Rising senior, so it's a little different profile. Arkansas was a little nervous about losing him, but his commitment to Arkansas held. So an interesting guy in that he's going to be a 4th-year guy, but it sounds like someone who's just being evaluated as a completely different player than the way he was evaluated before. Yeah,
the first time I saw him, I was like, that looks like Daniel Dickinson, right? It's the same body type, and you got the long golden locks, and you're like, okay. But then I had to learn how to say his name, right, to be able to speak about him.
It's a little tricky.
Which I have. But, I mean, if you're just comparing Niu to Dickinson, it's Niu's much better tools, right? He runs better. He runs at least a grade better. He throws at least a grade better. He's got probably a grade and a half to 2 grades better raw power. I mean, this is a twitchy, strong guy that has tools. Now, what needs to be proven, and if he can prove in the SEC, then, man, he's a top 2-round type of guy. But right now, the jury's still out just on the bat to ball, right? He struck out, I think, 27% in the Cape, struck out right around 20%, maybe a little bit less than 20% at Marshall this past spring. So he needs to upgrade that, needs to develop that more. But, what better place to go and do it than Arkansas? So the tools, the athleticism, everything is there. He made 30-some errors at Marshall at shortstop. He's a center fielder, plenty of speed, plenty of arm. He kind of took to it naturally. You told me the same thing. You got to see him before I did out in the Cape. But I saw what you saw. I mean, his routes are good. His instincts are good. First step, he goes and catches what he should. I think he had a couple errors, but it was a pretty flawless transition from the dirt to the big field for the guy. And he's definitely one to watch because, again, if everything clicks, he's a top 2-round type of guy. But with that said, like I mentioned, you got to have the bat to ball. He swung through a lot of sliders away. He can turn on anything in or half. He crushes cookies. But really exciting player. Arkansas is going to be. The fans there in Arkansas are going to be really impressed with this portal transfer they're hauling in this year.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun to watch. I mean, it's amazing too, just how much differently we can talk about him because the center field adjustment has gone so well. Because you're right, last year at Marshall, and I didn't really see. I saw him one day at the Sun Belt tournament, but the athleticism was there to play shortstop. The arm was there to play shortstop, but it was just, it was an untenable number of errors. It was 33 errors, below 900 fielding. That's just not going to work.
No, so, he's a pitcher's and pitching coach's nightmare. He was.
But then he moves to center, and it's like, voila, it's just amazing. It doesn't usually go that way, right? So anyway, cool stuff. Be looking forward to seeing him as the season draws near. I want to move next to Deven Sheerin, Seif, a guy, just to refresh our listeners, started at Mount St. Mary's, very quickly established that he didn't need to be at Mount St. Mary's in terms of his talent level, goes to LSU, misses all of last year with an injury. So kind of reintroduce us to Deven Sheerin, the pitcher, just given that he's been kind of out of sight, out of mind for the last year.
Right. I believe he was in the fall just playing pickup basketball, right, and blew out his knee, right? So he didn't pitch after maybe thinking there's going to be a big role for him in the back of that LSU bullpen, which, there's at times there's plenty of room for him, but then end of the year they moved Shores back there and they really that was the lockdown bullpen there towards the end of the season. That's obviously why they went to win the Natty. But Sheerin could have been one of those guys. He still could be.
Although he struggled with his control this summer, he was just getting the rust off, getting back, but he was up to 97. It's a big, powerful dude, aggressive delivery. So he is a reliever. I don't think there's any chance he's going to compete anywhere in that starting rotation, but and it's a whiff fastball too, 27% whiff rate this summer. He's got a good hard mid-80s slider, kind of a lower. There's deception. He's a big dude with a kind of, I don't know, it's not the smoothest delivery. Again, bullpen guy. There's good extension out front. He's got a little crossbody lane. Like I said, it just adds to his deception. But, it's going to be a fun one. He's going to be a fun one. Could be, that lockdown setup type guy, maybe even closer for him by the end of this coming spring.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the first things I noticed. The delivery is, there's some violence there, and it's like kind of a fall off the mound. It almost looks like he has to catch himself a lot of times coming off the mound. But look, it's generating 97 miles an hour, so LSU is going to be fine with that. Like, as long as he throws strikes, he's going to be okay.
Yeah. The other guy, not to go backwards here, but the other guy I really liked was Bear Harrison from A&M.
That was my next name. So yeah, please.
Oh, sorry. We're on the same page here. You look at him, you're thinking, again, physically, you look at him, you're thinking, oh, Cal Raleigh, right? Just a big dude behind the plate. Again, not comparing him to the 45 home run Cal Raleigh, but Bear Harrison does have pop. He's got 60, 65 juice. He really showed it off at the All-Star game in BP. Now it was at YD, short porch, wind blowing out, but it was just a fun watch. It was just thumping off his bat. And then behind the plate, he's got an average arm. He'll throw it down there 2.0. He blocks it really well behind that big body. He soft blocks it, keeps it in front. He could maybe develop the receiving more, but that will come. That comes with reps. He's just an interesting guy. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 3-round prospect, but he's a catcher with some juice that does an adequate job behind the plate, that has enough arm strength. Could be an interesting guy by the end of by next June, July.
Yeah, those types of guys don't grow on trees, No,
in fairness to Cal Raleigh, was he a 3rd or 4th rounder? And by what he's produced, he should have been a 1st rounder, right? And I'm not saying that's Bear Harrison. I'm just saying sometimes you look at the body and you're kind of like, I don't know if he can catch, blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden now he's, popping in the major leagues, and he's a good catcher because he's hit 45 home runs, right?
Right, exactly. My last name for you before we wrap today is one that I think a lot of folks probably don't know. And that's Justin Osterhouse, who is transferring from Purdue Fort Wayne. He very likely could be the last player ever drafted out of Purdue Fort Wayne when and if he gets drafted, because that program shut down. That's the reason why Osterhouse was in the portal. He lands at Alabama. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, a very versatile infielder. I forget everywhere he played. I think 2nd and 3rd quite often for the most part for Falmouth. But he brings a little bit of everything to the table. He's well-rounded. Power is probably his best game at this point, especially with the metal bats. He didn't really show it so much in the Cape, but he stole 16 bases. He's got enough juice to make it interesting. At the end of the day, he might profile best to second base just because he might be a little juice short of third base. But again, Bama's got a lot to look forward to. They've done a good job bringing in those transfers in the past several years, and Osterhouse could be another one of them. Just similar. Now, he's not a JUCO guy like they brought in the last couple of years. Like, was it Gage Wood, I believe?
Gage Miller, thank you.
Yep. So he's kind of in that mold. He's not a JUCO guy, obviously, but he's kind of in that mold. Does a lot well. Nothing like super plus, but definitely one to keep your eye on this fall.
And to your point, the defensive versatility. So I just pulled it up. He mostly played second base at Falmouth, but also played third base, left field, right field, and one game at shortstop. So, somebody that Alabama can just say, okay, we want his bat in the lineup every day. Let's let everything else kind of settle, and then we'll just plug him in wherever we have a hole. Like that's kind of feels like a guy that you can do that with. And that's, look, those guys are, especially in today's baseball, those guys are really valuable. So, but good all-around player. Like I got some decent I saw Falmouth one time, got some decent run times on him, and you can see that the power didn't show up, but it's there. So I'm with you. I think he's going to be a really valuable guy for a sneaky good Alabama team. By the way, for those listening, like Zane Adams back, Tyler Fay back, Matthew Heiberger from Harwich, who I liked. A lot of interesting pieces there in Tuscaloosa, so that'll be fun to watch. Seif, that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you again for joining us and sharing your evaluations from the Cape. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be here again.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of Highway to Hoover, a production of SEC Extra over at D1Baseball.com. Want to thank Academy Sports and Outdoors for sponsoring this and every episode of Highway to Hoover. One more thank you to David Seifert, our Director of College Scouting at D1 Baseball and PrepBaseball.com. And thank you, the listeners, for listening.